One night in April of 1919, a man named Eric Marth suddenly woke up in his bedroom in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Something was wrong. At first, Eric thought he might be dreaming because the entire bed seemed to be moving. But when he opened his eyes, he realized the shaking wasn't coming from the bed itself. It was coming from his wife. Margaret was lying beside him, her body twisting violently in the sheets. Her hands were clenched tightly, and she was gasping for air like someone trapped in a nightmare. For most people, this would have been a terrifying sight. But Eric had seen it before. In fact, he had seen it many times during the past few weeks. Not long ago, Eric and Margaret had moved into a new home. Soon after arriving, Margaret began experiencing extremely intense nightmares. They were so vivid that she would wake up suddenly, sometimes screaming or shaking uncontrollably. From Eric's point of view, the dreams looked frightening, but they never seemed physically dangerous. Margaret would eventually wake up, calm down, and return to sleep. So Eric did what he had learned to do. He leaned over and gently placed his hands on her shoulders. Softly, he repeated her name. Margaret. Margaret. Slowly, her body stopped trembling. Then suddenly she took a deep, desperate breath and sat straight up in bed. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as she tried to catch her breath. After a moment, she turned to Eric. Her eyes were wide with fear. "I saw it again," she whispered. Eric sighed quietly. Not because he believed her story, but because he already knew what she was going to say next. Margaret had recently become fascinated with a religious movement known as spiritualism. At the time, many people believed it was possible to communicate with spirits of the dead through rituals and séances. Margaret had fully embraced these beliefs. And now she was convinced their house was haunted. According to her, a restless spirit appeared in her dreams almost every night. Eric, however, didn't believe in ghosts at all. He suspected Margaret's strong belief in the supernatural was simply influencing her imagination. Still, arguing about it in the middle of the night seemed pointless. So Eric simply told her to try to relax and get some rest. But this time Margaret shook her head. "No," she said firmly. "I need to find out who that spirit is, and why it keeps coming back." About a week later, Eric found himself sitting at the kitchen table with Margaret. Across from them sat a woman who claimed she could communicate with the dead. The woman introduced herself as a medium. She placed several candles on the table and slowly lit them one by one. As the flames flickered, she asked Eric and Margaret to close their eyes. She explained that she was about to begin a séance, a ritual meant to contact spirits. Eric didn't believe any of this. But he knew it mattered to Margaret. And if participating in this strange ritual helped her sleep peacefully again, he was willing to sit through it. So he closed his eyes and waited. The room grew quiet. The only sound was the soft crackle of candle flames. After a few moments, the medium began rocking slowly in her chair. She spoke in a low, dramatic voice, calling out into the darkness. "Spirit, if you are here, reveal yourself." Eric expected nothing to happen. And at first, nothing did. But then suddenly, Margaret pushed her chair back and stood up. Without saying a word, she hurried out of the kitchen. Eric opened his eyes in confusion and quickly followed her. Margaret moved quickly through the living room and down the hallway until she reached a door leading to the cellar. She threw the door open and rushed down the wooden steps. Eric hurried after her, calling her name. But Margaret didn't respond. Were stretched forward. Slowly, she pointed to a specific spot on the dirt floor. When she spoke, her voice sounded strangely hollow. "Dig." Eric stared at her in disbelief. He had expected strange behavior tonight. But not this. "No," he said. "I'm not digging up the basement floor." Just then, the medium rushed down the stairs behind him. She told Eric that Margaret was in a trance. According to her, the spirit was speaking through Margaret and guiding them to something hidden beneath the house. Margaret repeated the word again. Dig. This time her voice sounded desperate. Eric didn't know what to think. He still didn't believe there was any ghost involved. But his wife looked completely different, distant, almost possessed. Finally, with a reluctant sigh, Eric grabbed a shovel leaning against the wall. If this helps you feel better, he muttered, I'll dig. He began breaking into the dirt floor of the cellar. For several minutes, the shovel struck nothing but packed soil. Then suddenly, clang. The shovel hit something solid. Eric cleared away more dirt until the corner of an old wooden box appeared beneath the ground. Together, the three of them uncovered it and lifted it from the hole. The box looked extremely old and partially rotten. Eric slowly opened the lid. The moment he looked inside, he jumped back. Because inside the box was a human skeleton. For a moment, the basement was completely silent. Finally Eric looked at Margaret and asked quietly, Is this the ghost you've been seeing? Margaret slowly shook her head. No. According to the story that later circulated about this strange discovery, the spirit haunting the house had once belonged to a doctor who lived there many years earlier. Nearly 2 decades before Eric and Margaret moved in, the doctor had secretly performed an illegal medical operation on a young woman. The procedure went horribly wrong. The woman died. Terrified of being arrested, the doctor tried to hide the evidence. He dismembered the body, sealed the remains inside a wooden box filled with quicklime, and buried it beneath the basement floor. The crime was never discovered while he was alive. But some believed his spirit could never rest. Until the truth was finally uncovered.